It is a brand new day here on Breakfast Central. Thank you very much for joining us this Friday morning as we, of course, delve into the biggest conversations happening here in Nigeria and bits and pieces in other parts of the continent. I am Osaogi Ogbawa.
And I'm Joe Hansen. Once again, it's Friday, and it's that day where everyone gets excited because the weekend is upon us. Most importantly, it's been a very hectic day, a very hectic week, Monday all the way to Friday, where we've had discussions that has bordered on the future and the livelihood of Nigerians, especially from those who make decisions. We're talking about the legislative and all the way down to the executives. Most especially, we've also looked at the drama that unfolded at the Senate. That's not all. Remember, this week as well, we also had the story of the student school loan. We also had the insecurity case. We also had so many things that happened in the space of 5 days. But guess what? It seems just like yesterday. It's so quick.
It's been a pretty eventful week. Yeah, and I've repeatedly said that, as much as there is so much going on, nothing should be more important than rescuing those who are currently in captivity. I saw one of these Indian, I can't remember her name, an Indian TV station, where they, announced the kidnapping of Nigerians, and of course also were sharing the reaction of the Nigerian president and basically, mocking or asking, if this president is for real. Why there's not been any emergency, unit set up to negotiate, why there's not been an outpost set up to negotiate, who exactly is asking questions to release these ones. But that has been, one of the biggest stories this week, along with, of course, in the last 24 hours, the story of Ruby Onwundiwe, whose nomination to the CBN board was reversed by the president, allegedly because of her support, or alleged support for the Labour Party candidate. And that has, of course, become one of the biggest conversations we've seen in the last couple of hours, actually in the last 24 hours. And it's once again showing that political leanings seem to, be prioritized above confidence, with the current administration. Who did you support? Who, which political party are you more loyal to? Those would come above competence, and I don't think anybody should be surprised, because if you look across all the ministers, the MDAs and all the nominations that were made by the current administration, you can almost just tell that competence was not one of the biggest things that was looked at before these names were picked. And so for Ruby Onwundiwe, which are very, very, it's shocking to see it happen so glaringly, that she, of course, will be rejected after being nominated. It's just really heartbreaking. And I saw someone tweet a few minutes ago that in all of this, it is Nigeria and the CBN that suffers, because people who have great qualifications, they would never lack opportunities. It is those who are, the hungry urchins, looking out for how they would make it to those positions, not because they truly are qualified for those positions, but because of political leanings. They're the ones that will go there and feast on these positions and will never see the benefits that we should get from these positions. So that's, of course, in the last 24 hours, what I've seen to be the, biggest conversation currently going on.
All right. For me, the last 24 hours, the biggest conversation has got to do with Senator Ningi.
Yeah.
An update where it's purportedly said or mentioned that Senator Ningi has come out to say that the Senate wants to arrest him. That's one of the stories, an update on that story. In the past 24 hours, Senator has indeed spoken, said the Senate is planning to arrest him, and everyone is wondering on what grounds. Aside that, in the past 24 hours, another story that's making the rounds is the news about Port Harcourt refinery, that it will begin operation in 2 weeks. But then again, you do recall our stance, and like we've always told everyone, there's no need for you to be all celebrating, all in jubilation, felicitation. You try to find the words to define your feeling. You just need to wait and let it start working. And I think it goes with the Cho statement for the week.
Very true, and I did also see a person who said there's no need arguing with the current Nigerian government. Just let time happen. Because when they make these statements and create these policies, the Port Harcourt refinery, I remember, I think it was meant to start in 2023, December 2023. They've made a lot of these statements and these projections about with time, of course, expectations already set, but none of them eventually happened. So it's same thing with Nigeria Air, same thing with the expatriate tax, same thing with the student loan. Same thing with many other things that they've also spoken about. So we'll see. I mean, there's really no need arguing or being pessimistic about it. It's really just to see how things turn out. All Nigerians want is for the country to work. In one way, shape, or form, let it work. Let this ministry, this department, let this agency work. Let's have people in office that know exactly what is expected of them and actually put it to work. Fisayo Soyombo, I've spoken about this, most of this week, has repeatedly and continuously called out the Nigerian Customs Service, but there's no response.
Nothing.
There's nothing. You can imagine that an investigative reporter has done his work and put out, even if you want to say that, he's just a madman, even if you want to say Fisayo is just a random investigative reporter that doesn't need to be given a presidential treatment or anything like that, but at least will the Nigerian Customs Service, will they at least x-ray some of the things that he's mentioned? Will the Nigerian government on its own look deeper into some of the things that he's mentioned? Some of the names that he's called. In the last, 2-3 days, he's posted hotels and places along smuggling routes that he says allegedly belong to customs officers from his reports. So, will somebody ask these questions? But if you don't value life, if you have 300, 400 people that are currently held in captivity, and there's nothing in the Nigerian government that shows any urgency with rescuing these people, then it's not custom that would be their problem. Like, the only things that would drive them and move them to take action is when, there's some level of shame that they feel about a particular story. But if there's no shame, if there's nothing in that regard, they almost would never take action. So, it's not. There's almost no sign. And it's fine that, I'm completely wrong with this. If we have someone who maybe can, point us, to other things that may not be seen. But there's no sign as it stands to show that, we're moving in the right direction. They know what they're doing. They're taking the right steps. Give it 2 years or 3 years and, things will be better. There's no sign in any way, shape, or form that they also feel different about the reality of, the current day Nigeria. There's no sign that they feel different about security challenges, about the economy, about healthcare, education. There's no sign whatsoever. I'm sure you saw the story of which of the ministries now that went to have their meeting in the UK? I can't remember which of them now. Accountant General's office, I think, had a seminar and they took it to the UK to have it over there. So, it feels like...
Where's the Oronsaye report?
Yeah, there's that also. And of course, we've also seen that, a new DG has been appointed at, NACA when they claimed that NACA and the NCDC were going to be merged. So, it's every single day, that you just wake up and read the news, and sometimes it might be even better to just completely stay off the news. But, we don't want to turn this into a rant.
Anyway, what we're simply doing is we're just looking at the big stories that has made the headlines from Monday up until today, and of course in the past 24 hours. I think we're just going to label it past 24 hours. Maybe that's how we start our breakfast show every morning now. We'll just say welcome, and then we say in the past 24 hours this has happened. So please lock it down. It's going to be a consistent feature here on Breakfast Central. We do have a new chip on the block. Would I say chick on the block?
On the block, yes, we do.
Judith joins us this morning. Good morning to you, Judith. How are you doing?
Good morning, Joe, and good morning, Oronsaye. It's very interesting that you call me a new kid on the block.
I said new chick.
There we go.
Chick on the block.
Yeah, well, I look it. I like to think I'm new as well. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you guys doing this morning?
We're fantastic. I was going to ask you.
He was ranting. I was just trying to cool him down with a cup of coffee, like, relax.
If you've been following, do I sound too, pessimistic? Do I maybe need to see things from a different perspective and, have more faith in where we're going as a country?
It's hard to have faith, right? And the truth of the matter is that you spoke the mind of everybody else. If anyone happens to be in your shoes as a anchor, news pressman in media as well, and you get to see this news real time as it happens, what really happens very quickly, and for the years you've been doing this, what happens very quickly becomes you sound pessimistic, but the honest truth of the matter is you see this play over and over and over again. And so the question is, when does it end? So I don't think you sound pessimistic. It's the bane of the job. I like to think that's what it is.
I agree with you.
Anyway,
Judith will bring in us the breakfast headlines, after which, of course, you can join at 9 a.m. and for the rest of the news. But in the meantime, our job here on bringing to you what's been happening in the past 24 hours, which, of course, is our new feature on breakfast. Let's bring to you the breakfast headlines and go straight into the talk of the day. CNG tackles Senate leader for coup plot statement. We will be having someone join us, and this will be a very interesting conversation.
And of course, we're going to be x-raying Nigeria's fight against insecurity.
Calls intensify for implementing Oronsaye report, regardless of what we just said. And fairness is one of the things they want to look at.
Yeah, and of course, from the National Assembly, Senate President Godswill Akpabio won't resign, and that's to the PDP. We're also going to be sharing with you which way Nigeria this morning.
You're tuned into News Central. I am Judith Atibi. We'll begin the news at this hour in Nigeria's northwest, where the community leader of Kuriga village in the Gadan Bakusa local government area of Kaduna State, Jibril Aminu, says abductors of about 300 students taken last week have requested for a ransom of 1 billion naira. Abductors of 287 school children of LEA Primary School in Kuriga village in the Gadan Bakuso local government area of Kaduna State are demanding 1 billion naira as ransom. In the meantime, the Nigerian military says that it is collaborating with international partners to free the recently abducted students from Kuriga in Kaduna State, located in the nation's northwestern region. The director of the Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, while giving an update on recent military operations, says that troops are doing all they can to rescue the victims and will leave no stone unturned in their quest to return them back to their families. And still on insecurity, the First Lady of the the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, has reiterated her call for stiffer penalties for kidnappers in the country. As she was speaking when she received in her office at the Senate House Abuja the senators representing the 3 senatorial districts of Lagos State. And still on security, an expert discusses the wave of kidnappings in Nigeria after more than 250 school children were abducted by gunmen in northwest Kaduna State. The senior security analyst of SBM Intelligence, Confidence McHarry, states that the country's security architecture is not responsive enough to stop the menace. And moving on, telecommunications companies and banks in Nigeria have been hit by an internet outage as a result of damage to international undersea cables supplying them with connectivity. Now, the damage affected major undersea cables near Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire and are causing downtime across West and South African countries. We're still in West Africa as the civil party lawyers in the trial of former Liberian warlord, and that is Kunte Kamara, whose appeal is being held by the Paris Court of Assizes, have reacted to the expected hearing of Aliou Kasuya, convicted in Switzerland of similar crimes. And on to Southern Africa, about 50 people have died in Angola after being forced to drink an herbal potion to prove that they were not sorcerers. Now, the deaths occurred between January and February near the central town of Kamakupa. Now, belief in witchcraft is still common in some rural communities despite a strong opposition from the church in the predominantly Catholic country. And ahead of presidential election in Chad, candidates in the Chadian country for the presidential election on 6th of May are submitting their candidatures to the Constitutional Council. Now, the civilian prime minister of the military junta in Chad, Succes Masra, and the transitional president, and that's General Mohamed Idris Deby Tino, have already announced their candidacy. And on to Zambia with religious fanaticism, as the police in the country say they have arrested the suspected leader of a religious sect in a village in northern Mashana Land, West Province, and rescued dozens of women and children. Police spokesperson Paul Iyati said Ishmael Chokuron Garwa, who leads the Gurwa Jana Panyara Yika sect, was arrested alongside 7 other senior members of the cult. And now we head to East Africa, where women in Janana in Sudan's West Darfur state are saying that they have been sexually assaulted by militants linked to the Rapid Support Forces because of their ethnicity. Now, the RSF has been fighting Sudan's army in the country's 11-month civil war that has left a humanitarian disaster in its wake. And in Kenya, doctors have started a week-long strike over delays by the government to deploy medical interns and the poor working conditions they say they have to work under. Now, the Labour Court had earlier issued an order to halt the industrial action to make room for negotiations. And that's all at this hour. I am Judith Atibi. Back to the gentleman on A Breakfast Central this morning.
Thank you so much, Judith. Well, I think one story that shocked me is in South Africa. I mean, drinking that concoction and 50 people losing their lives, all because they want
Angola.
to
In
check.
Angola.
Angola, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon, Angola. I kind of like mixed that up. Well, they need to check if there's witchcraft.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think all the stories from across the continent, none of them was really, there was no really happy story. It's either, the crisis in the Darfur region or in Angola there. I mean, everywhere. In Nigeria, there's a 1 billion naira demand for kidnapped victims. So, I mean, the whole continent needs to be put in rice or something so that we can shed off some of all these bad news, really. How haven't we moved away from an era where people still need to drink portions to test for witchcraft?
I mean, it really goes to show education and just how much of our belief system has still not been eradicated in spite of the proliferation of education and social media. I mean, we can talk more and more about this, but the honest truth of the matter is that there is still much that needs to be done in, sensitizing and unlearning and relearning when it comes to African culture and our beliefs as well. So it's a long way that we have to go. And I don't think we're making enough strides yet in that department.
So let me also ask, I mean, is it also the media's role to ensure that they put out, more innovative, more positive stories about the continent? Because this cannot, really define what Africa currently is like, or except I'm wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if someone is
without a
asking
question of a doubt. I think that media also do play a huge role. But the honest truth is that on the continent, the media is doing their best to put out as much good stories as there is, but it has to be a balance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As much as we're putting out good stories, there has to be stories such as this so that we can bring awareness, because not only is the media about education and also showing Africa in a great light, but we also have to tell stories such as these so that so that focus, we can redirect our focus to situations such as this. It's an interior province in that country, 50 persons, in spite of the fact that it is predominantly Roman Catholic religion that is practiced. There are still heavily people that are still engaging in this type of situation. There's also religious fanaticism going on as well. We saw the story in Zimbabwe where there's religious fanaticism going on there. So there's still so much that needs to be done. As much as we thrive for balance, the honest truth of the matter is, as the story breaks, we take them.
Yeah,
so it still has to do with the
talking about
well.
religious fanaticism, the Kenya story, the Shakahola story in Kenya, where more than 200 people killed themselves, allegedly. Of course, because they were asked to fast until they see, Jesus. That's another
They go and
thing,
meet Jesus.
that was just totally mind-blowing. But anyway, Judith, thanks for stopping by.
Yes, absolutely.
Looking forward
Welcome,
to brighter
guys.
stories over the weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Soon.
All right. And of course, those are breakfast headlines this morning. Judith will, of course, return here by 9 a.m. to share more stories with us in the news. But for now, let's take a short break. When we come back, we're moving into our top stories this morning on Breakfast Central. Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. The Nigerian Civil Service Union has called on the federal government to consider the interests of Nigerian workers while implementing the Oronsaye report, which suggests the merger of government ministries, departments, and agencies in a bid to cut down cost. The union made this call during the 58th Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja, where they also urged government to fast-track the implementation of the proposed minimum wage. Marvelous Obomanu tells us more.
This is the first time the civil servants are meeting this year. The 58th Federal Executive Council meeting has become imperative owing to the ongoing debate on the proposed minimum wage by organized labor unions in Nigeria and the push to implement the Oronsaye report.
We are talking about two issues that are of concern: the national minimum wage and implementation of Oronsaye report. National minimum wage, we are no longer having the wage that can take us home. So NLC, TUC, and all the athletes, we are on the same page in the struggle that the government should increase our national minimum wage so that we can meet up with the current challenges we are facing as a result of high cost of living.
There must be a critical evaluation, a critical study of the report so that it will not turn out to be a policy somersault. We are interested so that our member will not be out of job. We are interested so that at the end of the day, we will not turn out to be dependent when we are dependent at all. These are our focus, and I want to believe that when the time comes, all of us will rally around and get it right.
The union members are calling on the federal government to be fair while implementing the Oronsaye report, adding that some of their members could lose their job and turn to beggars if the report is not critically analyzed and looked into.
There are going to be merger of some MDAs in the name of cutting costs of governance. But the union is also standing very firmly that they should be fair in the mergers or in the policy implementations. Being fair in the sense that we don't want loss of jobs. We don't want any casualty of loss of job. And we don't want our Nigerian workers to become beggars.
Since the removal of the fuel subsidy, people, civil servants especially, have been finding life very difficult, despite the wage award.
The union is also calling on the federal government to trim down political appointees at all levels of governance to save scarcely needed funds used in running their offices. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
All right, thanks to Marvelous Obomanu for that pretty interesting report. And of course, civil servants will definitely be concerned, if when they hear about these steps about to be taken by the federal government. The Oronsaye report, of course, calling for the merger of ministries, departments, and agencies across the country. So yes, they will feel, concerned. Where am I going to? Which MDA will I fall under? If I was in NACA and now we're going to be merging NACA and NCDC, where exactly do I lie? But there's also, the point is, there is legitimate reasons for asking those questions. The government set up a committee that I think is made up by 11 people. That will, of course, look through the details of how these mergers should happen and, eventually put it into action. There's already been criticism, with regards to the committee. I saw that activist Chidi Odinkalu put out a post on X yesterday or 2 days ago, questioning the chances of success of this committee. I think I can quickly just share what he posted. He is asking, that he says the easiest way to kill the implementation of the Oronsaye report is to give the process an appearance of a sectional agenda. The lopsided composition of this committee, if it is not reconsidered, all but guarantees that. And if you look at the names in the committee, I mean, from what Chidi Odinkalu is saying, it doesn't necessarily need to be taken hook, line, and sinker. Members of the committee are Senator George Akume, Lateef Ola Sukomi Fagbemi, SAN, Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, CON, Dr. Folashade Yemieson, CFR, Usman Hadiza Balla, Dr. Dasuki Ibrahim Arabi, Senator Abdullahi Abubakar Gumel, Honorable Ibrahim Kunle Olarenwaju, Honorable, or rather Hakim Murio Okunola, and Richard Filangwa. So, I mean, his point is that most of the people, maybe 90% of the people on this committee seem to be coming from a particular section or two sections of the country, and none from the other, parts of the country. So he is already criticizing it and saying that, that's already one step into the plans failing, for the Oronsaye report. But I mean, if we stick to competence and we see that these people can actually pull it off, then, we'll see. The big thing here is understanding how these measures would work. How do you pull these MDAs together? How many MDAs are we then looking at, eventually? Yeah. Are we going to have only 10? Are we going to have only 5? Are we going to have only 15, at the end of the mergers? And of course, what are little details here and there? Will salary structures change? These things, maybe need to be clear. And that's what the civil servants are maybe a little worried about. I also mentioned earlier, of course, the NACA and NCDC that are due to be merged under the Oronsaye report, but the NCDC got a new DG on the 16th of February. I had to put this down. 16th of February 2024. The Oronsaye report, of course, was ordered on the February 24th, 2024. And then NACA had a new DG once again changed March 14th, 2024. So, I mean,
what will happen to
what happens exactly to the both of them?
Well, I think that's where the decisions will be made. If the president has urged for the Oronsaye reports to be implemented, that's where the committee that has been set up will now take a look at who would have to go or who would have to remain. And we've said it here at times without number that there is no way the implementation will not see a size cut. There must and there will be a cut, because you can't have two captains on a ship. You can't have two people directing the affairs of a body. It would not stand. So somebody has to give for the next person, but the question will now be who. And I think for the president, it may just be a case of saying, you know what, I have done my bit. You do your own proper research, evaluation of how the report will be implemented, then bring it back to me. Obviously, if it gets back to the president's table, he is the one who would indeed approve. So the bulk stops at his table, his leadership. He needs to ensure that, okay, fine, I've seen what you've done, because I would believe that the report wouldn't be vague. It will actually be very, very incisive and explain expediently that, listen, this and this and this is what we need to do in order to save budget. And remember, the aim of the Oronsaye reports is to save costs, is to save money, and to be very effective in implementation. So whatever we may have to look at, I would end by saying the bulk stops at the president's table. He would have to take that decision when the report comes. Will he take it if they say one person has to go, if they say 100 people have to leave this MDA, or this ministry needs to downsize to about 50 because there's a replica in the other ministry where you have over 100 people?
Yeah.
You see,
those
we're back to talk and do now.
Yeah.
Show working.
Yeah, exactly.
The working needs to show.
All those details will obviously, be fine-tuned. But it also creates space for those who say that, they don't necessarily see sincerity of purpose, with this whole establishment or going back to our Oronsaye report. And I did mention yesterday that it seems like the government is taking steps and making announcements and pronouncements that will make them look good, not necessarily things that have been clearly thought about. Because you can't have the largest cabinet that, Nigeria has ever had. You can't have the largest number of appointees, that the country has ever had, and then claim to want to downsize, by implementing the Oronsaye report. You can't have the, money being wasted on some of the most frivolous things, including a yacht and vice president's residence and cars for the National Assembly members And for the first lady, you can't have money being thrown away like that and then claim that you're trying to cut down, on government expenditure. You can't have money being thrown into palliatives because you're giving 5 billion, to states as palliatives, and then claim that you're trying to cut down on cost of governance. So it's just not adding up. This is not, you can't say this and do something different. And so obviously we'll continue to create doubt in sincerity of purpose. And once again, it always just sounds like, what is a thing that we can announce to make us look good? It's not necessarily a government that is very, very interested in actually doing these things to set the country on the right path. But we'll see. Time will of course, determine where these things lead.
Absolutely. We'll see. Well, let's also let our viewers know that there's also a sad story that broke in the early hours, I would say possibly late hours of yesterday and early hours of this morning. It's got to do with the fact that your state governor, Governor Seyi Makinde, just yesterday, towards the late hours, announced the passage of the 42nd Olu Ibadan of Ibadan land, His Imperial Majesty Oba Dr. Mohud Leko Balogun Ali Okumade II. This was one of the sad stories that indeed broke, and of course, like we said, into the early hours of this morning, the governor made the announcement in a statement on Thursday night, stating that Olubadan Balogun joined his ancestors late Thursday evening at the University College Hospital, UCH Ibadan. So it's one story that many have been reacting to, and that's the latest emanating from Oyo State. Hopefully, we'll get to speak to someone, if not in the course of this hour, maybe the next, or possibly during the news. But of course, the breakfast programming will definitely get a hang of someone who's there, and he will definitely give us an update.
Yeah, and remember, for viewers across the country and even outside the country, you can join the conversations we're having this morning. Call the number 0, I don't know the numbers, but the numbers on your screen. I thought I was still on radio.
I see what happened there. I see what happened there.
All the numbers on your screen at any point during the show, and of course, be a part of the conversation. Share your thoughts with us, all right? If you find reasons to be more optimistic about the current administration, we would like to hear about them. And of course, if you have bits of criticism for the way that things are being handled in any of the things that we've spoken about so far, feel free to share with us at any point. You can also tweet this morning at News Central TV. We'll be eager to share your tweets on live television. Let's move into all the conversations we're having this morning. Now talking insecurity in the FCT, and of course, other things that have been taking place. We've had various calls for these persons to be released. The more than 300 people that are currently in captivity. Sheikh Gumi, of course, stepped up earlier in the week, but was rejected by the government. These are some of the things we're going to be extracting this morning, right after this very short break.
You're watching Breakfast Central here on News Central. Well, we're still trying to connect with our guest. Hopefully, he gets to join us, and we are certain that that will be made possible, because I'm certain that you also know about the connectivity issues. Of course, the cable and the internet that's been quite unstable due to the connectivity challenges that's affected Nigeria, Ghana, and Cameroon. But then again, let's go back to our insecurity conversation. And no doubt you do recall that the Senate had called on the FCT minister to appear before it to explain details how insecurity can be curbed. In the course of the conversation, the FCT minister, who also doubles as the former River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, mentioned that the Nigerian police force does not in any way have a tracking device to be able to ensure that security is stable in the FCT and other parts of the state. The FCT minister mentioned that there is only one, and if the police operatives are to use it, they might have to go as far as to the headquarters to ensure that they can get it, bring it back, use it, and possibly get it back or returned. Or better still, go there and try as much as possible to ensure that they can follow up with insecurity coverage and challenges. But then again, the FCT minister did mention that in an interview yesterday that he will be looking to make purchases, as he has been able to write to the president. And in writing, the president has approved that he goes ahead to purchase and ensure that security apparatus will be there to make the lives and the work in curbing insecurity in Nigeria possible, especially for the security operatives. But then again, let's take a look at a package that indeed explains how insecurity has indeed grown from 2014, 10 years after, up until now, which is 2024. We are still grappling with insecurity as a nation, and then calls for release of kidnapped victims. So it is indeed a situation report. Our guest hopefully would be able to connect and join us. He is a security expert, one who has been at the forefront and who has indeed also championed the cause of fighting insecurity, not just in Nigeria, but outside the shores of Africa. But let's take this package. We'll be right back.
The Senate had passed a motion to allow the FCT minister and the FCT commissioner of police into the Senate chambers, which contravenes the Senate rules of business.
Minister of Federal Capital Territory and Commissioner of Police and Special Advisor to the President on National Assembly matters into the Senate chamber. I so move.
Those in support of the motion that strangers should be allowed and our rules should be amended or suspended for now, can you say aye? Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The rules are hereby suspended. Sergeant at Arms can bring in the strangers into the chambers.
Now, with that out of the way, both the minister and the FCT police commissioner were ushered into the Senate chambers. Shortly after, the Senate went into an executive session to get first-hand information on efforts being done to curb insecurity. After the session, the FCT minister expressed his views on the engagement.
Glad that they are all happy with what we have done and what we are going to be doing, and the suggestions which they have given to us, which I'm not going to disclose to members of the public. It's just a very, very interactive section.
He assured residents that the FCT administration will continue to build on the recent successes achieved in the fight against crime.
Mind you, two most wanted notorious kidnappers, we have gotten them, and that's why you see the level of kidnapping has reduced. So we are not saying that we have gotten to where we want to be, but we're doing a lot, and people must acknowledge that what used to be is not what we are seeing now. And we'll continue to say, we'll continue to do our best by providing the best for our people.
Residents of the federal capital will be hoping that this engagement will translate into tangible results in curbing insecurity. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Well, that's Amadine Uyi, and that's the a report package there. And the FCT minister said that they have to go back to work to ensure that insecurity is brought to the barest minimum. No one expects that it will stop immediately, but of course the work needs to be put in so that it can be curbed. That's one conversation we're looking at. On the other hand, while we are indeed looking up to the federal government to fight insecurity, just last weekend, a video which happens to be the third in a series of happenings from different parts of the country did go viral. It was circulating, and it showed police officers caught on camera assaulting some men for allegedly driving with tinted glasses. A statement was actually made by the command's acting public relations officer, DSP Joshua Ukandu, where he revealed that an investigation into the incident had begun and promised disciplinary action against the officers, especially those who have been found to be involved. Now, the statement read that the attention of the command has been drawn to a viral video on social media on the uncivil conduct of some police officers attached to the command.
Well, the command unequivocally condemns their unprofessional conduct, and necessary administrative measures have already been initiated. While a detailed investigation into the incident has commenced to ensure justice and appropriate disciplinary action, of course, that's the video you can see on screen, and apologize, should have warned about how disturbing that video is. But, I think everybody, would agree that it's almost obvious that, when the police make these statements about how the erring police officers have been detained and appropriate disciplinary action will be taken, it's all just, pouring water in a basket. Mostly because, if you don't see that anything improves, if you see another one next week and another one in 2 weeks and another one in 3 weeks, it's clear that nobody was punished for the one that happened a month ago. Because if you have appropriate actions taken, and these officers are sacked, these men are fired, they lose their jobs, lose whatever claim to pension that they have, and they maybe are charged, for, assault, then maybe we wouldn't see another one happen next week. So it's pretty obvious that nothing really happens, when, we hear reports and we see statements from the police spokesperson saying that disciplinary action will be taken. And of course, you make you also question what exactly, is the caliber of people that you have joining the police force. What kind of training do they have? What training do they go through before they're allowed to join the force? What is the educational requirement, before you're allowed to join the Nigerian police force? If we have, it's a country where bandits and terrorists, are named repentant and they are, of course, brought back into society. You can also, I think there was also claims that some of them were, maybe going to be joining the police force at some point, but I don't remember how that story
went. And they had
went.
to protest again. Yeah. You saw the protest. They were angry that they're not taken care of.
Exactly. So, and these are bandits and you probably could call them terrorists. But, my point is, who are these people and what is the process with which you become a member of the Nigerian police force? What is the educational standard that is being used to ensure that, of course, everybody who we have in the police force is properly trained, and would not display this type of attitude? Which kind of people are you giving AK-47 rifles to be police officers, regardless of the units that they claim to be a part of? This is the same country that in 2020 had one of its biggest protests that lasted for weeks, the NSAS protests. Eventually, of course, led to the, maybe disabling of the SARS unit. But it hasn't completely killed police brutality. We are still seeing it. And, the point is, in the last couple of weeks, there have been more and more of these cases that have come to light. So, again, when the police makes these statements about disciplinary action that will be taken, nobody believes that. Because if you did it when it happened 6 months ago and you did it when it happened, right after that, the chances that this would happen today are really slim. Because those police officers will know that, yes, if they are caught, they would be severely punished and they may lose their jobs.
In response to this story, the said police officer was indeed caught and brought before an interview. He was asked during an interview, not by the press, but of course by the Commissioner of Police. And he did say that the lady slapped him first. This is another case I'm talking about now, not this one in Ebonyi on the tinted glass, another police officer as well. I'm just trying to give instances of what has happened in the past week. And there's another viral video where the police officer was indeed seen slapping the lady, real bad, a woman, slapping and saying because she talked to him first. Then bring it down to the tinted glass, the one in the tinted glass. Truly, Ebonyi State Governor had said they should ban all cars with tinted glasses. But you also had the Inspector General of Police who said, okay, let's rest a little on the tinted glass issue until we come up with a new process.
Yeah.
Now, what we see here is communication being circulated properly. So while there was a directive from the top, in the states, they were carrying out another directive. But it doesn't warrant you beating humans like they are silly dogs.
And that's the thing, so I'm not sure, if what the law then says in Ebonyi State or across the country about tinted, glass. And I don't know that you should be arrested for driving a car with tinted glass, if that is the case.
You just need a permit.
Exactly. So if you don't have a permit, is the police now meant to arrest you? Because I'm trying to imagine worst case scenario here is, or maybe they try to arrest these individuals for driving a car with tinted glass, and they were resisting arrest, and so that's why eventually got there. But we still should never get to that animalistic level with police officers and citizens. That should not be the next thing that should happen if a person is resisting arrest. That's not normal in any part of the world, especially with people who are armed with assault rifles. It's not normal.
It's a big challenge. It's actually a big challenge, and hopefully we'll wait to see what the response are. We've seen this play out last year, where police officers were indeed stripped. They were stripped. They were put out there on social media as a response to your calls on seeing what will happen to the police officers who indeed did not do well while they were on duty. And it was indeed shown how this result did play out. Many of them had to be let go of their duty, especially with the police force. But what will happen to this one, we'll get to find out as well.
Absolutely. Remember, you can join the conversations this morning. We have active phone lines, and if you, of course, have your thoughts on these stories or these issues that we're discussing, quickly join us while we, of course, gear up for the next stage of Breakfast Central this morning. The newspaper review comes up next, sometime around 8 o'clock. But let's quickly share with you a quick recap of some of the stories we've dealt with so far, and also what's coming next.
PNG tackles Senator Bamidele for coup statement. It's a conversation we look forward to have. We touched a bit on it, but of course our guests couldn't join in due to network challenges.
And of course, insecurity, Nigeria's fight against insurgency and how it continues to ravage the country. The Oronsaye report, civil servants call for the implementation and for consideration.
Coming up next here on Breakfast Central for the second hour, while we're getting ready, we'll take a look at the story again. CNG tackles Senator Okwemi Bamidele for that statement he made. Of course, the front pages of the newspapers, you can start dialing in to be part of it. And then we'll bring it to an end with Which Way Nigeria. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. The phone lines are open, so it's time for you to call. Let's know what your weekend story would be. As we glance through the front pages of the papers, we do have our guest who's joining us. Of course, he is a public affairs analyst and one who has been following the Nigerian situation. Like a friend of mine said, is Nigeria situationship, because it is like we are in a relationship with Nigeria. Nigeria is in a relationship with us, so we are facing it together. Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Deyemi Saka.
Good morning. It's nice to be here.
Great. All right, so let's go straight to our very first paper this morning and get the ball rolling. And our first paper is this: Nigeria. Nigeria seeks fresh, take note, $500 million loan from World Bank to support IDPs and others, according to a report. Don't believe it yet. It's a report. But there's no smoke without fire. That's one. Secondly, it's this Nigeria, and their mantra is know the truth. So, of course, they will not put out a report that doesn't have any chance of being the truth. So, recall that the central bank governor said no more borrowings. But here we are, fresh borrowing, $500 million. We'll talk on that. Budget pardon Akpabio won't resign. Senate spokesperson tells PDP. Yaradua takes over from Ningi as Northern Senator's chair. Bandits demand $1 billion ransom for kidnapped 286 school children. Hopefully, we do have our security expert who's able to join in between in this conversation as Mr. Saka also, takes a shred on that story. Threatened to kill hostages for 20 days. Troops neutralized 213 terrorists, apprehend 283 others in 1 week. There's no need to cover the entire paper because of time, but let's go straight to the very first story. I'd like you to react to anyone that you think it should take your first statement or conversation.
No, I think I'm going to go with the bandits on demanding $1 billion ransom for the kidnapped students. We introduced this culture. It became a practice, even a governmental action. People might want to frown at it. I'm not indicting the government without facts. A lot of people might want to question what happened, what they call Kuje jailbreak. But to an average sensible Nigerian, they will tell you that was a prisoner swap. And that has been, that set us back even the war on terror many years. Now, I tell people, when you give these guys the ransom, you keep paying, they start from the Kankara school abduction and what have you. They are not going to use these monies paid as ransom to buy sausages and beverages. They are going to use it to get buy-hams and keep funding their terrorist organization activities. That's what they are doing. And in line with the economic realities on ground, we should expect their demand to be higher in terms of the exchange rate and what have you. That's not me being unpatriotic, but that's the truth. What do we do? I think some of us have been clamoring for a move to reduce the non-combative non-combative collateral damages we incur in this war on terror. Yes, we tried it once, and that was what happened in Kaduna. And all of a sudden, an identified terrorist organization became a ground for religious gathering to question our humans' capabilities and verify the intel that comes from humans. Humans is human intelligence. But for me, I've said these times with that number, and I keep saying it. The economic hardship imposed either directly or indirectly by this present administration is still going to affect the humans' potentials of this administration war against terror, because people are facing economic hardship. They would rather go to these guys that will give them the handout to buy their loyalty than government that is not doing anything to ease the burden of Nigerians. So the economic hardship also has this negative impact on terrorism that we're facing, because people are hungry, and these terrorists know they're hungry. People are hungry. They know people are hungry. They rather allow this, and they are the one that controls the farmlands in some states. So they probably allow them to go. They will give them some aids. Terrorist organizations. Nigerians should understand that when we say terrorists, we are fighting terrorism. The people just imagine the people that they see on images and reportage are the ones that terrorist organizations. They are sophisticated, they are well trained, and they have intelligent people in the organization that they can take 2 years to plan an attack. You have them in the media, you have them in the banking sector, you have them even as school teachers, you have them as even the university as professors and what have you. So you have to, it takes a lot until we expand our scope of knowledge and understanding of terrorism. We're probably chasing shadows. I don't know. I don't want to indict some. There are some things that ought to be in place. I don't know why, as a country, we can't preempt these things. There's always a pattern of attack. There's always a sequence. There's always a map. That's why mapping and code mapping is something serious in planning a military operation. At the same time, coming up with counter-terrorism measures. Some people call it coins, counterinsurgency strategies. I don't know what we cannot be questioning, but because you're not seeing results here, we should be questioning the counterinsurgency strategy of this administration.
Yeah, we keep seeing, because I also want you to share. The writer to that story says, it first of all says bandits demand 1 billion naira ransom for kidnap. You remember there's the 40 trillion naira own also.
Yeah.
But it says here that the writer said troops neutralize 213 terrorists, apprehend 283 others in 1 week. So if we have these, how many of them then exist? Like if we have these stories of Nigerian troops killing 250, 900, 5 billion terrorists, how many really exist? And are we talking about 100,000 of these people that you can kill 200 in 1 week?
I think the disservice and the wickedness the former administration did to Nigerians was the escalation of the classification of terrorism, reducing it to banditry.
An unknown gunman.
Yeah. That was the biggest. There's this transborder terrorism going on from Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto, Katsina, with Niger and what have you. So that we should face that as well. And I think we should tell ourselves these things too. I think some of us have been advising that there's a need for us to have what is called counter-terrorism organization. or units, not like we have like you pick some people and form like, you know, they just wear the badge or something moving around. They should have a decentralized CTU that has state commands, and it should be under the control of the NSA, irrespective of who the NSA is. And because it's terrorism, it's also in the urban area or certain.
I think we have something like that. I've seen.
No, we have people drafted to make CTU, but even the CTU is in place is not backed by the Act of National Assembly. We should have a counterterrorism unit backed by the National Assembly that looks like something like civil defense.
Yeah.
Something like it is its own outfit, dedicated and trained. Yes, you can pick personnel from these existing units and what have you. And it's not about first-class graduates. It's
about baby Boago that we see in the south.
No, you need professionals. You need statisticians. You need people that are trained, tested. You need to even get people that are willing to join. At the same time, you should be open to compromise. So you should be the recruitment process should be thorough. Should not be political like we've been having in every other organization, because we should tell ourselves the truth as well. And it's an asymmetrical warfare operation. So anytime you see American military doing this, military doing that, we are not going boots on the door. It's something we have to see, because all you're killing are the soldiers, the foot soldiers.
Yeah.
We've not gone for the brain cell, the brain unit coordinating these attacks. We've not gone after the sponsors.
The financiers.
I think I shared it the last time I was here. Like there was a time during the era, after 9/11, there's this some constant surveillance by the FBI, and the only reason that they're able to thwart, foiled, or probably avert a terrorist attack on Dallas was their eavesdropping capability, and they had a phrase: the wedding will be holding. Nobody would think of such a phrase and think it's related to terrorism. And they followed the trail of the conversation and started monitoring, and those guys had to abandon the terrorist attack on Dallas because they knew they were on the trail. So we need to get some phrases, upgrade our lexicon, terrorism lexicon, to know the phrases that they use to send information across.
Basically, we need to invest more in intelligence.
Yeah, but I also have a question. I mean, I don't expect you to have the answers. I wish we could talk to someone currently just now that the situation is getting even hotter.
Don't doubt them, I have the answers.
The investments, the monies that have been pumped into security, going up to billions and billions and trillions on insecurity in the past 8 years. The Takano, name them, the equipment, everything that has been bought and invested to ensure that this fight is indeed taking hook, line, and sinker straight to the terrorist itself. What's happening?
No, there's something called scope paper. Scope paper is what has a list of what you need for military operations and what have you, from armament to person and what. I think the people that have been drafting the scope paper for the DHQ before now have been unserious and insincere. Because I'll tell you this, people might want to argue something, but there was no need for us to get to Kanos. Any right-thinking intelligence officer, any right-thinking counterterrorism expert would tell you that what we needed, I just took brands of attack helicopters without me giving them adverts. Apache and Hind. Hind is MH-37, MH-37 and MH-35 and 37, designed by Russia, an upgraded version. These are things that probably will give you what is called CAS, close air support.
Yeah.
Apache can be at Ojudu Beja there and still be engaging people right here. That's how long and that's how effective the projector, the range is. So the Tucano we probably need an airstrip to take off and land. The Apache can give you the closest support, can launch the attack. You can use it as what is called, you can use it for dust off. You can use it for dust off, what's called medical evac.
Yeah.
Can Tucano give you those things?
Yeah, we, of course, if we start to x-ray the decisions and procurement decisions, by the Nigerian security agencies in the last couple of years, that's another kind of worms. Let's go to the Daily Trust this morning. Remember, the phone lines are active. You could call and share your thoughts with us. If you have other ideas concerning security you want to share, feel free to. The Daily Trust this morning says, insertions by National Assembly legal, says Bagudu. Akpabio won't resign, Senate spokesperson replies PDP. Principal officers received over 200 million naira, Alundume is speaking. Atiku, of course, demands probe. Tinubu writes, National Assembly demands reenactment of Students' Loan Act. Ham man allegedly killed sister's husband over 20 naira assault. Also, school abductions, NSA service chiefs, northern governors meet. Port Harcourt refinery to commence operation in 2 weeks. And also, drunken father mistakes 9-year-old daughter for wife. Interesting. Kano POS operator returns 9.9 million naira mistakenly transferred to his account. These are the big stories on the Daily Trust. Where do you want to start from? National Assembly or Port Harcourt Refinery?
Port Harcourt Refinery, we've been, the deadline of the resumption is, always been, pushed forward. Hopefully to start one day. Hopefully, if it's for the good of the country. Let's just keep being hopeful. I'm optimistic before we've been pessimist. Insertion by the National Assembly legal? Well, that should be tested in the court. I think we should seek interpretation from the Supreme Court about the rules of the National Assembly when it comes to public revenue, budgeting, and estimates and what like. We should seek interpretation of the Supreme Court because this is not the time the executive will send their appropriation bill to the National Assembly, especially the Senate, and you see different alterations, reductions in one project. Something happened when I read an article which was the breakdown of the allegations by Abdulhamid Lingi, and I saw the Minister of Agriculture is had budgetary allocation for renovation of schools in Imeko in Ogun State. Minister of Agriculture, not Minister of Education. You find those things laughable. It shows the kind of trading that happens at the National Assembly. Without me, you probably want to ask why the Minister of Agriculture coming with such a thing in the Imeko. But this is me telling you that if you want to dig deeper, the head of the Appropriation Senate Committee is Solomon Yayi. He's from the axis, he's from the Yewa axis of Ogun State, and Imeko falls in the axis. So those are things we should those are things that make people frown and question the integrity of the budget. How can the Minister of Agriculture? You see, I gave up following the appropriation because at that time when it was the cry about scrap the Senate, and they were saying it was Saraki-led administration, National Assembly that wasn't allowing Muhammadu Buhari to work as president. And I looked at the budget of the State House, and I was infuriated because you find a yearly allocation of 200 million naira for renewal of software yearly, and I don't think any software will get updated yearly. The minimum is 2 years. You find allocation of 80 million naira for sporting equipment, 60 million for sporting activities. And after the whole thing, you now find a sum of 200 million naira to prepare the budget of the State House by the Budget Office.
We've also seen, the boreholes.
Are they buying
that are meant
mosquito
to
coil or because they want to work on it over
and you see, the justification, because, when Ndume said senators got 200 million naira, when Senator Jarigbe accused that some ranking senators got 500 million naira, and to further insult the collective intelligence of Nigerians, Akpemi Bamidele, senator from Ekiti State, said Nigerians should wait for the next 12 months to see if they won't see boreholes, if they won't see solar street lights, if they won't see empowerment. And I'm like, this is how much these people have reduced.
Sorry to add to that your statement, empowerment of cutlass
and
broom.
No, the question I will ask Akpemi Bamidele as a senator is, if you want to empower his children and probably his relatives, will he be giving them tricycle, grinding machine, sewing machine, and hairdressing? Is that what he's going to be giving them as empowerment? And I think a lot of senators at the National Assembly probably don't know what they're there for. You are not meant to. We are not a road construction company. You don't have any business building roads. Your job is to make laws and oversight function to make sure that agencies of government and even establishments in the country work in line with the laws of the land.
Well, it's been a long time, I think it was probably in the Obasanjo era that the whole idea of constituency projects, emerged. And so since then, it's just been redefined, every year. They now see it as their right.
No, I think there's a need for us to question. See, our national values, let's start from our values as a family. That's the unit of every society. Has been corrupted, which has, reflects on the societal values that reflect on the kind of leaders we have. I think when we design or probably we define our national values, we can question this constituency fund and remove it. And I was talking to a friend on a platform when I asked how do we bring down the cost of governance and avoid these bogus or huge budget estimates. I said, Just as the Constitution listed out the states, just as I have states listed out the Constitution and local government, let us have a Constitution that will list out the ministries in this country. That these are the ministries we should have. These are ministries that should have 2 ministers to have to provide, these are the number of ministers we should have, 37.
Yeah.
If it's a constitutional issue, it's a constitutional matter, constitutional provisions, you can't have a president coming in and creating a Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. Another one comes in and say, no, there's Ministry of Works and Housing. Another one will say, no, there's Ministry of Works and Infrastructure. Just, if you have it, rigid in our constitution, this is what you have to appoint, this is who you have to appoint, and it brings down the budget. In fact, they should include the number of essays the president should have.
That's not.
I mean, those are constitutional amendments.
But let's do this. I mean, we've also. I do understand that the insecurity conversation is still huge. Unfortunately, we couldn't get our guest to join us in the first hour, but we do understand that he's here with us. Let's quickly just get his input very quickly on his thoughts concerning the insecurity situation in Nigeria, where 1 billion naira is being asked for by the kidnappers, 20 days being given, and according to them, if nothing is done, they will start killing the students, the teachers, one by one. We do have Dr. Kuola Adekunle, he's a security expert, joining us. Once again, we do understand the nature of the network, so let's quickly get your thoughts on this very quickly. What say you about the insecurity challenges and, most importantly, the request being made by the bandits?
Thank you so very much. And I do apologize for coming on late.
It's
due
fine.
to network issue.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Now, insecurity in Nigeria has become a systemic problem. A systemic problem that is dealing with our plan, it's dealing with our processes, and it's dealing with our policies. Insecurity in Nigeria has become a political tool. You realize that since 1999, each administration, has had to face a particular insecurity, or the other. In Obasanjo era, we have a political Sharia, and also against Obasanjo and Yar'Adua, you have the Niger Delta violence, that Yar'Adua was able to resolve for all. Then, during Jonathan, President Jonathan, we have the Boko Haram issue that lingers till date. And it wasn't during the General Buhari tenure when we have the herders, the farmers, the clashes, we have terrorism, we have bandits and kidnapping. Kidnapping in Nigeria presently, it's a multi-billion-naira business. And so if it's that huge a business, you can think of the kind of people that are involved in kidnapping. The guys that goes on the main road, carrying AK-47, taking people, taking them into the bush, they are not the real kidnappers. They're just the errand boys. The real kidnappers are, the godfathers, and the godfathers are in the government. They are in, great political figures in the nation. We have them even in the military. We have them even in the police, and that's why it has been that. As if we cannot win this war. This war, we can win it, we can defeat it, but because of the sabotage, internal sabotage that are involved, it lingers, and it's as if it's a war that cannot be the one. There are so many parameters as a security expert that I can give you that tells you that if the government is determined, especially the presidency is determined, we're going to win this war. Can you imagine, the kidnappers giving the government the ultimatum? That looks like a state of anarchy to me.
Yeah. Tell us more.
Girls were abducted.
Yeah, well, I want to ask, tell us a little bit more about, the internal saboteurs, and how you feel like that should be dealt with. And, a government that is really, really and majorly focused on politics, is that a government that can deal with saboteurs in its government?
Yes, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that, there are saboteurs even within the government, in the military and in the police. You remember what late General Abacha said. It was a profound statement that has been processed and found to be very true. It said if the insecurity, persists in a nation for more than 3 days, then it must have the hand of the present day government in it, because what is happening in Nigeria is never done anywhere. By the grace of God, I've lived and worked in so many nations, abroad, and I see the way things are done. 1,400 of our students have been abducted since the Chibok girls, and the number keeps growing. The number keeps growing, and every time, those that are released pay huge ransom. Even though the government will be saying that ransom should not be paid, we know that these are just lip services. Even government officials themselves are paying ransom. The Ekiti students that were abducted, the former minister of Nigeria was the one that was in charge of trying to raise the money for the family, for the release of the girls. When the 6 girls of the Abuja Alaji were abducted, and one of them was already declared killed. It went so bad that even on our social media, people are raising money, to help the family so that they can pay ransom. And now government is saying, don't pay ransom. It's so bad that even after the girls were released, the police already came out and said, we ensured the release of the girls, and the family had to come out. We paid ransom. I know that there is a law in place. I think it was 2020 that the government already made that law that forbids ransom payment. That if any person is found paying ransom, the person will serve at least 15 years jail time. And since 2020, people have been paying ransom and nobody has been arrested, or prosecuted. All right. That shows that one way or the other, there are people that matters in this nation that are godfathers to these kidnappers. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago that one a former kidnapper was interviewed by a reporter.
All right, so let's just kind of hold on.
How many operations have you been?
Kindly hold on. We need to take a very short break. So hold your thoughts. When we come back, we'll have you continue from where you're stopping now. We'll take a short break. When we come back, the program continues. All right, welcome back. We, of course, are still talking security while, of course, x-raying the newspapers this morning and sharing with you, of course, what the major conversations are concerning security. Nigerians still held in captivity, more than roughly 400 of them still held in captivity just in 2024 alone. Dear Mr. Saka, of course, joined us earlier. Mr. Saka, share your thoughts on, what our security expert has said so far. Is there parts of it that you completely agree with, with the idea of saboteurs and, of course, the steps that the government may, should know that it should take, but is failing to?
Yeah, well, I agree. The internal collaborators with these people and internal collaborators in high places. So for you to weed them out and identify them, we should get these things straight. When we want to fight terrorism, it's not about media show or media trial. There's something called neutralization. In fact, I'm not clamoring for extrajudicial killings, no.
Yeah.
But in fighting terrorism, there's something called neutralization to those that know how to do it. So some guys need to be neutralized. You don't have to bring them to the media and for the showboating and what have you. And to identify the collaborators, and when you do, you don't even need to rush to the press to start talking, because once you go to the press, the other guys will start cutting off links to them and cleaning up. So I think the government of the day needs to subject the hierarchy of the DHQ to a polygraph test, especially with more attention on the procurement department of the DHQ. I can tell you, even the CIA, it's only few people that are trained to beat the polygraph test. Not everybody is trained to beat the polygraph test. Subject the hierarchy at the DHQ to polygraph test. Spread it across board to the branches of the military, the hierarchy of the DSS and police. Once you do that, you identify internal collaborators, you don't even need to, sometimes those guys will hope, and they are willing because nobody wants to die.
Oh yeah.
So this is a risky question, right? Would we call them saboteurs or just interested parties that the government somehow, because I don't know if the Nigerian government can claim that it doesn't know that these people exist. So is it right to call them saboteurs, or they're just interested parties that somehow, of course, work in government, but have, interest in some of all these extracurricular activities that, are just not touchable? And this is what I'm asking. And I'll refer once again to Fisayo Sheyombo. His report
on customs.
Yes.
Yeah, on customs, exactly. It's not, we can't claim that the Nigerian government is not aware that these things exist. And that includes customs and in insecurity and in every other, government agency.
Now, how many catch of arms have been seized and we've seen trials? I remember there was a time during Buhari's administration.
No.
It was always celebrated, this and that. And firearms, light arms and water used to get into this country. And it has to pass through the customs. So you ask yourself, have you seen the border between Nigeria, Sokoto, and Niger? Have you seen the border unit, the border point? You probably you just weep. There are some parts of Katsina. This perimeter side is Nigeria, this perimeter side is Niger.
Yeah.
So the borders are porous. But you see, for you to, it's like this, if you cut off, I don't know, maybe you watched the movie, the 13th Warrior.
Yeah.
Cut off the head of and they lose pack. By the time you identify the collaborators from within, that compromise intel, by the time you identify them, you've virtually smashed or distort or disrupt their activities. And the party will tell you things because they know they've been found out. And these people are smart. So don't think you're just talking to one Kamaru that you apprehended wants to do at the point of breaking in somebody's residence. So you think you can just rattle. Some of them are ready to die.
Yeah.
Because apologies are with no intent to insult a presidential candidate at the last election when he was asked how will he deal with terrorism. And that was Peter Obi, and was saying he'll provide employment. And I was laughing. We're not talking about unemployment. We're not talking about poor education or out-of-school children fueling terrorism. This is ideology. This is indoctrination of some crazy ideology that you find people well-educated, even well-trained, from even aristocratic background involved.
Yeah.
So but when you have even our political leaders that don't even identify the root cause of these things, we're probably chasing shadows. If you're chasing shadows, that means somebody's running and you're seeing the shadow. You're chasing nothing.
It's criminal networks. It may be called terrorism.
And in addition to this, and I tell this, and I'll probably give the NSA what we call Expo. Let the NSA bring the map of the old Kanemi Empire. This is now giving him where to start from. Place it on Africa.
Okay.
Present-day Africa. You identify the theaters of terrorism in Nigeria, in Chad, up to Libya, which even happens to even regime change and civil war and what have you. And what does that tell you? It tells you that the concept of this war, terrorism across Africa, is a recreation of the old Kanemi Empire in the modern day. Now, you identify what brand of religion or brand of, what brand of Islam was the old Kanemi Empire built on. Now, you now look at, you have to identify the brand of Islam is built on. Who is the custodian of that brand of Islam? That shows you probably where you should start digging from. Sympathizers to those people that have claimed and start picking them from your countries, because that's the network.
Yeah.
My father was a Muslim while he was alive, so I know a lot about Islam. I'm not saying no Muslim, not all Muslims are not terrorists, and all Christians are not going to heaven.
Of course.
Yeah.
Fact. That's a fact.
Let's quickly bring in Dr. Adekunle once again. to join the conversation. Welcome back once again, Dr. Adekunle.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, you may just go on, with your thoughts on where we are with this conversation. Do you see that the current administration? I saw earlier today we showed a video of the FCT Minister Wike saying that they had done well enough in the FCT. There's still a lot more to achieve, but so far they are doing their very best. So, do you think it's the same thing that is going on across the country?
Well, I feel that the presidency, it's willing, to fight terrorism and insurgencies in this country. When you listen to his inaugural speech, all right, one of the main things he said is that his administration will fight insecurity headlong because there cannot be any meaningful development infrastructural-wise in the atmosphere of chaos. And he backed it up by being bold enough to change the service chiefs when he came in. And when you look at the budgetary allocation, for fighting insecurity, I think this is the time we're having the highest, amounts of money, about 325 trillion or so, that is allocated to fighting insecurity. And that's a whooping 12% of the overall total budget. That this tells you that perhaps the president is determined to, fight terrorism. But when you look at what insecurity has become in Nigeria, I said that it's a systemic problem now. And it's a systemic problem that is dealing with our tools, dealing with our plans, dealing with our processes and our policies. It's a political tool, and it's become a merchandise. Then you will want to think that is this administration, ready or capable of fighting insecurity headlong, as the president said? Because to do that, you're going to be willing to step on toes of meaningful Nigerians, politicians, military officers, and high caliber individuals in this nation. That was what the past administration refused to deal with. Yes, we are buying Tucano jets, we are buying all those, but that is not what actually wins terrorism or insecurity. It's the willingness of the administration. You can spend a lot of money to buy tools, you understand, but yet you still be willing. Are we not in this country, when some guys were apprehended in I think Saudi Arabia for sponsoring terrorism in Nigeria, and in court they had to confess that they were just agents, that each time they get the dollars, they send it to certain individuals, and those individuals happen to be serving in the government of the last administration, and they said they send them the dollars for onward delivery to the militants, the terrorists. And you would think that the government will take that up, and one time for all, some people are going to be, used as scapegoats. It died down like that. There was another time when a private jet that has been delivering foods and weapons and ammunition to terrorists in parts of, Borno State, was apprehended by the youths of the community. They just said, this is getting too much. They seized the jet, and eventually it was discovered that the jet actually belonged to, a former head of state in this nation.
Was
supposed to be
a
major breakthrough for us.
Dr. Adekunle, anyway,
yes.
Dr. Adekunle, I think I do recall that story, that it was found, but I don't recall it actually belonging to a former head of state. But then again, the more reason why I'm actually coming in your comment is so that in our remarks we can be very sure of
right.
the key points we're making, so that I mean,
get
once
you.
we're quoted here on this platform, we can indeed, of course, justify that our statements are indeed key with the things that have indeed taken place. But I'll come back to you for just one last question. I have a question for you.
All
I
right.
think I'm just going to give you the question, so
Okay.
you might want to marinate on it. Let me use that word.
Okay.
And my question to you simply is this. The FCT minister just said yesterday that the Nigerian police force does not even have a tracking device to track kidnappers. And the IG of police, a few months back, just launched drones where he was seen testing them before pressmen to say, we are ready for action. I would like your response on that, but let me come back to Mr. Saka, who's with us here in the studio. I'm going to come back to you based on one question. I mean, my question still borders on, coincidentally, I mean, insecurity has indeed taken over our conversation, because that's the major story on the front pages of the newspaper. And like we have been hounding that, this should have been a state of emergency, because many governors have called for a closure. Let's stop whatever we're doing. Let's tackle this thing straight and headlong. However, where do we go from here? Looking at the fact that our time is pretty short, where do we go from here now that we have these students? Today, we've lost how many days counting? The country, as it were, not just the federal government, the country was given 20 days. It's not what we see in the movies. So we're on a countdown now. 20 days, time is ticking. Where do we go from here? Your suggestions before, I mean, we go back to Dr. Adekunle to get his feedback on the tracking devices.
Yeah, before I go, I need to just correct two things. The people that were arrested for financial terrorism was not in Saudi Arabia, was in UAE. And at no point did they mention anybody in Buhari's administration. Let us put it out there. The second thing about helicopter being apprehended and what's revealing to a former head of state, the head of state in question was General Abdulsalam Abubakar, and that story was, you know, at the end of the day was found to be false. Yeah. And the guy that made the allegation was arrested, and I think he was being tried in court for sedition and, you know, libel and what have you. Then where do we go from here? We have 20 days. There are ways we could...
About 18 days now.
18 days.
17.
18 days. I believe they want to identify the location of these guys. They can. There's no way we want to embark on a rescue mission that will not incur collateral damages. Let's prepare the minds of Nigerians for that. And if you want to reduce the non-combative and combative collateral...
Can you explain more on collateral damages for the viewers so they can get...
Lives will be lost.
Lives will be lost.
Those, if you want to go full bridge to retrieve these kidnapped persons, life will be lost. And I don't know how we want to...
Lives may be lost.
Life, no, will be lost.
I think...
will be lost because we've demonstrated capabilities of not being able to manage collateral damage when it comes to rescue operations. So lives will be lost. We are not talking about the special forces here or the Rangers and what have you. Those I can probably put or probably the special force of UK, I can put my life on the line for that. So lives may be lost, okay? If you want to go with us, our life may be lost, but I think there's a way we can pay the ransom.
How?
And still retrieve our ransom. They know what to do, they know how to do it.
Okay.
That is one. They know what to do, they know how to do it. They know how to get a trail. And please, just some week as the Minister of FCT talks too much. It's not in the command, control, and communication structure of any branch of our armed forces. It can speak for them, and you stop speaking for them. You can't be demoralizing our troops and everything with just making political statements. This guy talks too much.
But of course, regardless of collateral damage.
I know about because I know of the Nigerian police asset. That was what made Abba Kyari popular. He was in charge of the tracking word device. That was got for the Nigerian police by RSA, I think with collaboration with the European Union. So what is Wike saying?
We're almost out of time. Yeah. I just wanted to say that regardless of collateral damage or not, who you are attacking in the forest is still the errand boys, still not the core, the kingpin of these kidnap and these terror organizations. Listen, I believe that these are their terror networks. Yeah. Like you've said, and they're very intelligent terror networks. They stretch way beyond Nigeria into the smuggling routes that are, of course, in the coast of Guinea and whatnot. it's a much wider operation than just, oh, you know, we like terror, we don't like Western
And so
education.
I know
It's a lot bigger than
even
that.
the money they get in Nigeria, you'll be surprised that it's even funneled to ISWAP to
Yes.
pursue the war in Libya.
Absolutely.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely.
See, there's so many questions we'd like to ask, but I think we'll have to bring you back. Let's go to Dr. Day. Please go ahead and let's get your answer to the question asked. Briefly, please.
Thank you very
brief.
much. You know, one of the major problems that I've seen that we have in this country is rivalry between different, government departments. Even in the security infrastructures, there are rivalries. And unlike other nations where there are synergies between them, you don't make such a statement to demoralize an institution that had, literally ruled West Africa and Africa by large. In the past, I'm talking of the Nigerian police. There was a time in the history of Africa and West Africa that the United Nations depended on Nigerian police, for peacekeeping in the area. You remember Komog and the like, So if the Nigerian police is not capable, I'm sure the United Nations will not, be calling on us at that time. And there was a time that we have the department called the branch in the Nigerian police that was responsible for sniffing intelligence, and the branch was responsible for, thwarting so many coups that were supposed to happen in the past in Nigeria, until an incident happened and the branch was taken from the Nigerian police. So I fully believe that, if fully engaged in terms of all parameters needed, the Nigerian police is capable and is able to track, all right, the internal bandits that we have in this nation. So I don't think it's right for Wike to have made that pronouncement. I think Nigerian police is capable. We have seen Nigerian police come to the UK, come to England for international trainings, and at the end of the training, we always come out the best or one of the best. So I believe that Nigerian police is capable. We only need to engage them fully and give them, what is needed in terms of 21st century infrastructures and equipment needed, and
right.
they will perform.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Adekunle, for your time, for joining us. We really appreciate every single moment you've spent here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We also want to say thank you so much to you, Mr. Saka. Look forward to have you again. We have this palace that we say in our local palace here on Breakfast Central. When it's Monday, we say Happy New Week. When it's Friday, we say Happy Weekend. And one of our guests did say Happy Weekend in Nigeria now means anything for the boys. So we're careful in saying Happy Weekend.
I was
So just say,
maybe you're going to make the weekend a happy one for me. I'm waiting. No rich man now in this country.
We understand that. It's across board now. Thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
being here.
It's
All
nice,
right.
it's nice being here.
Same. Thank you for watching. Stay put. We do have Which Way Nigeria, which comes up next after this break.
February 28, 2024, the news of another bandits attack in Kaduna State made the news, of course. Normally, it would be ignored, as always, by government and Nigerian people, just like most kidnapping cases lately, because Nigerians are tired and have mostly gotten used to these stories and the lack of action from government. So, yes, this one could have also been ignored as usual. But then, a few days later, developments to the story broke, and of course, it was because these bandits were demanding 40 trillion naira, 11 Hilux vans, and 150 motorcycles. Now, at first, it came as a shock just hearing the amount that was being demanded, but even as alarming as it sounded, we, of course, have moved on to other issues like the mess in the National Assembly and the drama that has occurred in the last couple of days. Nobody is even talking about the kidnappings and those who were being held in captivity. But this morning, I'm speaking on the audacity of these terrorists. the guts to not only take innocent civilians hostage, but also spit in the face of Nigeria. Because that's exactly what this is. Pure, undiluted audacity. They're simply telling Nigeria that kidnapping at this point is simply a game for them. They do it anytime and anywhere and any time that they feel like it. They take as many as they feel like taking, and then they make the most shocking demands. Nigeria's annual budget after padding is somewhere around 28 trillion naira, but these bandits want to be paid almost double of our annual budget as ransom for 16 Nigerians that were taken into captivity. Now, it may sound like a joke, but what I hear, once again, is audacity. The belief that they wouldn't be caught or touched. They believe that they may not end up getting, maybe 40 trillion, but they might get something close to it. And again, nothing will happen. The audacity that is born out of repeated failure of the Nigerian government to tackle kidnapping of its citizens. Audacity born out of the obvious disregard for the value of the Nigerian life. I mean, while almost 400 Nigerians are being held hostage, our national conversation as of today is about a senator being suspended. That's the national conversation while 400 Nigerians are being held hostage by terrorists. So yes, audacity from a group of terrorists that don't value or respect you and your country. They kidnap your citizens, they insult you with their demands, they commit crimes against the Nigerian state, and then they spit in the face of the Nigerian government. Now, which other nation on earth would have 400 citizens held hostage and hear nothing from its president or inspector general of police, not one, national address? Which other country will have its citizens kidnapped and have zero acknowledgement from the National Assembly, because that National Assembly is currently busy fighting itself with corruption allegations? And that's where the bandit audacity is coming from. And yes, it will continue to grow, its wings while we joke around. If our government doesn't value our lives, then neither will bandits. If the National Assembly doesn't show the value of the Nigerian life, then again, neither will terrorists. Good morning, Nigerians.
And well said. What a way to wrap up the program this morning, all the way from Monday through to Friday. It's been a roller coaster of mind-boggling, very deeply entrenched stories that will make you wonder where and which way where's Nigeria headed to? But then again, let's quickly bring to you a recap of some programs to look out for. I know we did mention them at the start, that we have a lot of them, but then again, let's see what's coming up later today here on News Central.
Yes, so 10 a.m. West African time, we are bringing you Jasiri.
12, you've got News Central now. Get the latest stories and updates from the news.
And of course, much later, we have, of course, tonight at 10 p.m. West African time.
My cup of coffee is actually finished. I was taking every sip at every story mentioned, because, it's sometimes hard on you, and you just need your mental strength to go on.
To deal with Nigeria stories. But it's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you very much for staying with us all through the week.
That's right.
We're going to be back here again on Monday morning to continue, of course, with Breakfast Central. For now, it's back to the news. Judith, of course, takes over with the news coming up at 9, of course, right after the series. I am Osaogie Ogbawa.
No, I'm Joe Hansen. Good morning.